Hello again, welcome back. This is the walkthrough video of the 2022 2.0 update for Symphobia 2. I am Maarten of ProjectSAM, and in this video I'll cover the biggest new features and changes that this free update has to offer. Recently, we updated Symphobia 1 to version 2.0. This means Symphobia 1 and 2 now share the same platform and offer very similar features. And that's why this video will be a little bit more brief. If you're looking for a bit more information about a certain feature, make sure to check out my Symphobia 1 walkthrough as well. Symphobia 2 was released in 2010. It wasn't so much a sequel, but rather a companion library to the first Symphobia that was released 2 years before that. It expands the Symphobia palette. For Symphobia 2, we explored more specific playing techniques such as trills and grace notes, and also added a ton of new orchestral effects. Symphobia 2 was also our first library to feature Legato, and the first for which we produced a full cinematic trailer, scored, of course, with Symphobia 2. Run, you fool! Run! It's too bad. Symphobia 2 was updated a number of times over the years. For version 1.3, we recorded additional dynamic layers for the legato instruments. And versions 1.5 and 1.6 updated the design and offered more control over dynamics and key switching. But now, with this 2.0 update, Symphobia 2 is completely on par with the recently updated Symphobia 1 and TrueStrike 1 libraries. You get the new contact engine and design, the new all-in-one browser, full articulation control, a completely new legato engine, adaptive sync, and new multis. And again, this update is 100% free for all existing Symphobia 2 users, even if you bought the library all the way back in 2010. I guess we just love you that much. Now, let's take a closer look at what's new. Starting with the new browser. You can now browse the entire library from here and view multis, instruments, as well as individual articulations from one place. Symphobia 2 is now an all-in-one instrument. You can also filter and view the multis for just the action genre, for example, or group the legato instruments or the brass instruments. You can filter for articulations as well. These are all the sustains in the library, or the marcatos, or the staccatos. And if I click one of these results, it will load just that articulation and none of the others into RAM. There's also a cool preview button for each item in the browser. For the instruments and articulations, this plays back a single sample. For the multis, you'll hear a tiny little composition. Cool. Speaking of multis, we remade all of the original multis from the library. We also made a bunch of new ones. Here's a new one called
Game over, man! It's game over!
As you can hear, this one uses a new option that triggers an extra note when you release a key. But you can play fast rhythms like I just did. Here's another new one called
Why did it have to be snakes?
This one has a bunch of eerie effects and tremolos spread across the keyboard. Let me play one of the recreated original multis. A story unfolds. And one more original one. Grandfather
Reminiscences.
cool little detail, you can now explore the multis from this screen using the left and right arrows. Let's take a look at the new main interface. We call this the performance view. It's one of the 4 views that you can switch between over here. I have my real-time mic controls on the left. I can morph between the stage and the close mic set of this instrument. And I can also go to the individual mic faders here, in case I wish to assign different outputs per mic. In the middle, I can select the main articulation. I can stack articulations by holding the Shift key, like that, and unload articulations by holding the Command or Control key, Command on Mac, Control on Windows. I can also select a controller here. Right now it's set to key switching, and you can see the assigned key switch for each articulation here in the grid. I can also select a CC number to switch between articulations. On the right, I have a bunch of controls for the selected articulation. If I change the dynamic controller over here, it will do so for just the effects, because that's the selected articulation. Same for the volume, attack and release controls over here. Some articulations are available in multiple variations, and these are listed over here. So we split the effects articulation into sul ponticello effects and wild effects, because they're quite different. And for these variations too, you can set a controller to switch between them. Finally, just like in Symphobia 1 and True Strike 1, you'll see 10 mixer slots down here. You can load up to 10 different Symphobia 2 instruments into these slots, all within this one contact instance. And this is in fact how we made all of our multis. And the cool thing is, we only used controls and settings from the interface. You have access to these same controls, which means you can build your own multis and, for example, save them as a snapshot. Which brings me to the new mapping view. You now have very deep control over the mapping of the sounds on the keyboard. For example, right now I still have the effects articulation selected. I can see the mapping of both the variations in there, and I can both shift these around individually and also trim them like this. So say that a few minutes ago you were like, why didn't you put those 2 types of effects next to each other on the keyboard? Well, you can do this yourself in just a few steps. Over here in the list of variations, I will enable both of them by shift clicking. And now in the mapping view, I simply shift sul ponticello to the left and the wild effects to the right. And there you go. Two other useful options in the mapping view are the velocity controls here, which allow you to offset the velocity and also limit the velocity range to which the articulation should respond. And this, the note stacker, which allows you to add additional note pitches to the note that you play, like so. Next up, adaptive sync. Symphobia 2 has joined the sync family. Adaptive sync allows you to effortlessly match crescendos and other samples that have a musical build-up to your project's tempo. We went back to the original Symphobia 2 audio and added adaptive sync functionality to a number of the articulations. These horns and trombones, cliffhangers, for example. Right now, adaptive sync is set to the downbeat. This means that the engine will make sure that this cliffhanger effect will always end exactly on the downbeat. Musically, so that does not include any reverb tail that is in the sample itself. So I can start on the first beat, or on the third, or lower the tempo, it all just works. Every single time the cliffhanger effect ends exactly on the downbeat. I can also set the adaptive sync to a fixed number of beats instead. Now the cliffhanger effect is always going to be 4 beats long, regardless of when I start the note. Adaptive sync was introduced in Symphobia 4 Pandora and has proven to be a big time saver since then, freeing up time for you to do more important things like drink too much coffee. Time to look at Legato. Symphobia 2 has 12 beautiful legato instruments with all note-to-note transitions recorded up to an octave upward and downward. For this 2.0 update, we rewrote the entire legato engine from scratch, and we added a number of improvements while we were at it. For slower, expressive playing, the legato instruments sound, well, better than ever. But they're now a lot more suitable for faster playing as well. There's now also a new polyphonic legato mode, which uses advanced machine learning. Well, not really, but it analyzes what you play and then decides whether to go into legato mode or not. And that means you can play both this and this, with one and the same legato instruments. It's fully automatic. You can even play this. And the engine will play legato transitions between those two changing top notes, and that's a pretty cool option to have. Finally, there's a bunch of legato settings that you can tweak in the global settings screen over here. Most notably, you can enable or disable what we call legato hop back. And this is the legato engine hopping back to the previous note if that note is still held down. And this is the same playing with legato hop back and without. Whichever you prefer. Rounding off this video, let me show you a few cool features across the entire library. Since we're here, how about this one? Layer staccato by default. If this is enabled, loading a legato instrument will automatically stack the legato articulation with the companion staccato articulation for nice pointy playing like this. Cool. Or this one, global adaptive sync controls. It's enabled by default, and this means that all adaptive sync articulations in all the 10 mixer slots automatically have the same length and settings. Say I load the cliffhanger effect again over here, change the adaptive sync to 4 beats, and then add the string crescendos in slot 2. Things are now already matched up. Didn't have to do anything. You can specify a custom output for each mixer slot in the settings for each instrument. If I want to output the cliffhanger effect to stereo output 1 and the strings in slot 2 to stereo output 2, I can do so like this. There you go. And finally, NKS. Symphobia 2 has full support for the native control standard. You can navigate all the instruments and articulations, search and filter, and control the most important parameters directly from your favorite native instruments hardware. Mixer slot selection, the articulation, variation, the mic mix, reverb, and so on. If you're updating from an earlier version of the library, there's a few things that are good to know. First of all, updating does not delete the old versions of the instruments and multis. You can still access these and load them up without any problems. However, you do need to do this in Contact or Contact Player 6. This is the case even for the old instruments after you update. If you have existing projects that hold Symphobia 2 instruments inside Contact 5, those tracks won't load correctly after updating. You will have to go over these tracks and replace them with Contact 6. You can then load whatever Symphobia 2 instrument, old or new, in there. Finally, if you don't need the old instruments and multis anymore, feel free to delete these folders. This will also get rid of the Multis tab in the Contact browser, which is fine since the new multis are now available from within the all-in-one instrument. So that's it, Symphobia 2 version 2.0. You made it through yet another walkthrough video, well done. We definitely have more library updates planned, but we're also working on brand new stuff. So this time, unfortunately, no sneak peek at what's coming next. You'll see. Until then, check out our new Sound Spotlight videos. They cover one cool library preset per video, very compact, and we're recording a bunch of new ones in the coming period. Enjoy the Symphobia 2 update, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.